Hi everybody, so today's video is going to be the pelvic floor workshop. So for those of you, again, that were unable to make it, I am putting it on the internet for everyone so they can practice. It's a little bit more difficult to do this one because it's just more of a lot of cueing and a few exercises because obviously I'm not a pelvic floor therapist. Please go see one if you have more of an issue with your pelvic floor than just needing the occasional stretch, strengthen, and release. But the first thing we're gonna do is find your pelvic floor. A lot of people don't even know where that is. It is something very important when it comes to women's health, which is really a big reason why I do this. It's also like a lot of you have had kids, a lot of you have experienced diastasis recti, and pelvic floor also plays a huge role in your core, in your hips, everything. So for those of you that are chronic butt squeezers where you're standing and then you realize you're squeezing the crap out of your butt. You've got the people that jump and then they pee when they jump, or they pee when they do too much, or they pee when they laughed. And then you have the marathon peers. Those are the people that push when they're going to the bathroom, when they're going to pee, or even when they're, going number two. There will be language in here. We'll be saying vagina a lot. So just get used to that now. But it all has to do with your pelvic floor, and it's very important because also if you're constipated, if you have a tight pelvic floor, you're going to have even more issues with constipation, which can also be kind of There is a wand, it kind of looks like this, that goes inside of your vagina to release those muscles, almost like something to help literally do this motion on the inside. That's going to help because that's what our vagina is, it's muscle. And so we have to release the knots and release the tension in that as well. That would be where you go and see your pelvic floor therapist to help you with that. So going into finding your pelvic floor, so I would recommend you doing this lying down first and then sitting up and then standing with your feet hips width apart. So what you want to do is you want to lay down on the floor. You want to relax the muscles of your thighs, your butt, and your tummy. You want everything to be relaxed, nothing is squeezed. You're just taking big, deep belly breaths here. Then what you're gonna do next is you're gonna squeeze the muscles around the front passage, as if trying to stop the flow of urine. So if you ever stopped your pee mid-pee before, that is your front passage. From there, you're going to release that. Then you're going to squeeze the muscles around the vagina and suck up inward toward the pelvis. So that is gonna be like picking up a blueberry. So if you've ever for some reason had to hold in something in your vagina, like a tampon or something like that, and you've had to bring it in and up, that's that same thing. So think of this motion that I'm using with my hand as your pelvic floor, and you're lifting and pulling up, right? Relaxing that. The next thing is squeezing the muscles around the back passage as if trying to stop passing wind. So you're stopping a fart. That's the back passage. So you have all three of those that play in part to your pelvic floor. So when you're doing that, the muscles around the front and the back passage automatically is going to kind of squeeze in and up inside the pelvis. Like I said, women who are familiar with using tampons can imagine squeezing in the vagina as if squeezing the tampon higher up in your vagina. So when you contract all three together, that is one, the correct way to do a Kegel exercise, and two, that is using your pelvic floor. So all three, contract up and release, contract up and release. And you may notice that your core wants to engage, but don't let that core above your belly button do anything. Everything should be below the belly button, everything above the belly button relaxed, okay? So if you're having trouble with it laying down, just practice a couple of times. It's not something that you need to work really hard on all the time. It's just something to do, 2-3 times a week at most. And then as you get better with it, more advanced, then you would go into Kegels and you would go into Kegel exercises again, making sure you are doing those correctly. And I will always use this hand gesture because that is what makes the most sense to me of what's going on. So some things to strengthen your pelvic floor. So these are for those people, that pee a little bit when they jump or laugh or anything like that. Anyone who's had a kid, more than likely, like 90%, probably have one of a weaker pelvic floor. So they're going to need to strengthen that. So the ways that you can strengthen it is through a glute bridge, a bird dog, again, Kegels, which we just learned how to do. And then like your low ab work. So that's going to be your leg downs, your froggers, your hollow holds. Now we have done all of these exercises in class before. We've done glute bridges, we've done bird dogs, and we've done leg downs, froggers, hollow holds, those marches. All of that is using that pelvic floor. And what you want to think of when you're doing those exercises is now engaging that pelvic floor the entire time. Again, it's going to be difficult to show you those exercises using pelvic floor because you can't see it. It's all an internal feeling. So like when we do a glute bridge, I can't even like show you the difference between me using and not using my pelvic floor to do it because it's a feeling. So you always want to think of squeezing the front and back passages in and up, picking up the blueberry, and that's where you start. So like for a glute bridge, I'm still going to show you, even though I know everyone knows how to do a glute bridge. So we're here laying on the ground. So I'm going to front, back passage, squeeze it in so my pelvic floor is now engaged, my core is engaged, and then I'm keeping that engagement as I glute bridge up and come back down. Remember, it is not a hip bridge. I'm only going a few inches off the ground here. It's more of a pelvic tuck. But this entire time, I'm not just allowing my pelvic floor to release. I'm keeping that engagement. Now, I can feel when I release and engage my pelvic floor. But again, I did that there, and you can't tell the difference just looking at it. So it's something that you really need to internally feel. But those are a few things to strengthen it. When stretching, it's really going to be anything that's going to stretch out your hips. So it's going to be like your figure 4 stretch, which is this guy, which you can do laying down or standing up. And when you're stretching or sitting, when you're stretching, you want to make sure that all of you is relaxed, that you're not engaging your pelvic floor at all. You're just letting the muscles do what they need to do, relax, release, and set. So you have your hip flexor stretch as well. You can do that lying down. You can do it standing up. You can do it kneeling. We have knee to chest, which is this one, and then knee to opposite shoulder, just pulling it over. Again, you do want to make sure you're keeping your pelvic floor relaxed the entire time with this one. And for those of us that are a little bit tighter in that pelvic floor region where we're always constantly holding it, always constantly tense, again, my chronic butt squeezers, you'll have to think about letting that muscle relax, because that will also help with the marathon peeing and just allowing that pelvic floor to drop so that your bladder can release itself. So your pelvic floor controls a lot of things when it comes to your bodily functions. And I can't say that enough. Seated butterfly stretch is going to be another one. You know, your seated butterfly, I should pull back here. Your seated butterfly stretch again. Right now I am engaging and I'm like, man, I need to relax. And I have to like actually think about relaxing my pelvic floor when I'm doing stretches. And that goes for all types of stretches too. It doesn't matter if it's just for pelvic floor. Any type of stretch, even a quad stretch, you don't want anything else in your body to be tense. Otherwise that stretch isn't going to work as well. Then we have your relaxing. So that's going to be your diaphragmatic breathing, which we talked a little bit about in the functional core workshop, where we're taking that inhale for 5, filling up that belly, letting that pelvic floor drop, and then we're holding for 2, and we're exhaling for 6, and we're holding for 2. And as we exhale, that pelvic floor comes up, we inhale, and it lets it drop down. So that's how you can get that little bit more of mindful control over the engagement and non-engagement of your pelvic floor. Child's pose is a really good one. Again, you want to make sure you're not clenching on that one. Relaxed frog, which is just a deep squat. So that's this guy. And again, make sure you are not engaging your pelvic floor, because I really want to, and then I got to think to myself, Sammy, do not engage. Do not engage. Because if I am engaging, that's not the point of this. I'm not relaxing. I'm not letting any of those tense muscles untighten and relax. Okay? And then we have Cobra Pose. That's when we're pushing up off the floor. We got that arch in our back, stretching out those psoas muscles and those deep core muscles. Again, another one to just relax on. Happy baby pose is another really great one, where we have feet up in the air, and you can either go like this or you can go like this. Whatever way you want to do it, making sure, again, we're not clenching anything at all. And then you have hypopressive breathing. So this is where you take a breath without actually taking a breath. So you fill up your lungs, right? And then you exhale your lungs all the way out, and then you try to take a breath without actually taking a breath. Notice I did a very quick inhale, exhale there because it's kind of hard to talk when you do that. But what you do is, again, you sit with your back straight, keep it relaxed. You're gonna take a big breath in, open up the rib cage, exhale, release all of the air that you have, and then you're going to plug your nose if you feel like you're gonna breathe, and you're going to try and take a breath and expand, and then you're gonna quick inhale and let it go and breathe out and let that come back to itself, your breathing, for a couple seconds before doing it again. That one is gonna be much more advanced. I would not recommend doing that until you feel comfortable with everything else that I've mentioned in the pelvic floor workshop. Again, there wasn't really a ton of exercise for you to do here. It was more a lot of cueing on my part, just because, again, it is a feeling. Pelvic floor is a feeling. It's not something I can physically see. I am not a pelvic floor therapist. That is what they are for. If you are having issues with your pelvic floor, please go see one, especially if these exercises are not helping you at all. Any questions about the pelvic floor workshop, feel free to drop a comment below.